And then when we're looking at, potentially expanding the survey area to the west, do we know about how far we were, yep, and no problem. Do we know how far we would expand the lines? Like, I guess in terms of how many more lines we might do and the distance between them?
No, we haven't actually had that full of a discussion about it. I'm sure we'll do that well in advance of before we would have to execute it. But I imagine we probably keep our spacing about the same, and it's just a question of how far out we would advance before how far we would limit that, and because I think we probably want to get a look to the south as well. So to the southwest. So we might not expand, might not run the same length lines. Maybe I don't know, maybe a mile or so. We'll certainly talk that one over before we execute.
Awesome. And hopefully we'll have a better idea of sort of the next steps this afternoon or evening. And somebody, I think people are getting as maybe obsessed with the Samoan Clipper as we are. Someone asked what sort of books would you recommend if they wanted to learn more, and I suggested Pioneers of the Pacific as one of them.
Yeah, Pacific
Oh,
Pioneers.
Pacific
Yeah,
Pioneers, yep.
by John Krupnick. Is a very detailed and beautifully illustrated book on the whole history of the Pan Am's Pacific Division, and with I mean in extraordinary detail in that it gives listings of like individual flights and which aircraft made them and on what days, and it has a whole chapter about Samoan Clipper and with lots and lots of really helpful photographs and illustrations and an awful lot about airmail as well. He's amassed a terrific collection and knowledge of that whole service that was so vital to Pan American, and has been a great assistance to the project as well, helping provide us with more information and photographs like that. The specification book for the Sikorsky S-42B model came from him. That he had the whole thing copied and bound and sent to me, and then shared photographs, including that very dramatic one of the airplane diving past the ridgeline in Pongo Pongo. So that's a great one. There's a brand new book out by John Hill called Pan Am at War, that is only published, I think, in about the last year, and has a quite a detailed history of the development of Pan Am, and all the decisions that led up to it, and all the personalities involved, and traces it through the prior to its formation, and then all the way up into the end of World War II, and there's a chapter on Samoan Clipper and a lot of detail about Ed Musick and about the personalities involved, and John Hill is one of our scientists ashore, and is in addition to being an author and an aviation historian, just recently retired as the curator of aviation at the SFO Museum, the very fine museum that's located in the San Francisco International Airport. And I had a chance to meet him there, and told us some great stories about the early days of Pan Am and all the personalities involved. And we're actually thinking we may try and get him on the Science Party line with us at one point, and to provide some color commentary
As
we go along, because he is very very well spoken and really lively and engaging storyteller. So it would be great if we can set that up.
Yeah, when I met John at the SFO Aviation Museum, he told me the story of how Ed Musick got his nickname of the jeweler, actually.
Yes. Why don't you tell us that?
Oh gosh, I'm probably totally gonna butcher it, but to my understanding, Music was this very well respected, detail oriented captain with Pan American Airways, and of course he was the captain of the Samoan Clipper, and he was known for, what is it, measuring twice and cutting once, just really
Yes.
having all of his ducks in a row and all of those other euphemisms for being organized. And he also wanted to make sure that everything was in tip-top condition before flying, right? And so he would, am I getting the story
Well,
kind of
I
right?
think well, that's absolutely true. I think the jeweler nickname came from much earlier in his career when he was working as an aircraft mechanic, and he would meticulously polish like everything. Like a jeweler, like every piece of equipment, every instrument, like that he would even clean the glass faces of the instruments in the airplane, and so that the old hands around the airfield would kind of deridingly were calling him the jeweler because he was so obsessively like polishing and cleaning and caring for everything, and then a while later they weren't laughing so much when they realized that his planes, the ones on his care, were not the ones that would have engine trouble or make forced landings. And the pilots all kind of recognized that when the jeweler was taking care of your plane, it worked the way it was supposed to.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And I was reading sort of a recollection of the memorial service and the entire city and county of San Francisco put on this memorial service for
Yeah, at
Music
City
and
Hall.
his crew. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, which it goes to show sort of this massive impact that this event had, and in that they mentioned that Captain Music had a policy that you only wore your uniform when you were in service or on duty,
That's
and
right.
so all of the pilots that attended the memorial service came in suits and ties rather than wearing their uniform, sort of to honor that and honor his, role in their careers.
Absolutely. Yeah, apparently he didn't like much being photographed, and he certainly didn't like being photographed, off duty. But yeah, he absolutely felt like the uniform was only appropriate to when he was acting in his capacity as a pilot for Pan Am. So and he didn't much care for the publicity machine, and of course they would want to push him to the forefront because he's the trailblazer and the captain on their most important routes. He's the chief pilot, and so the one that falls to make the most challenging and demonstrate the viability of these long overwater routes, and so that really reaches its peak with the first flight of the China Clipper, the first commercial plane to fly the breadth of the Pacific, in stages, from San Francisco to Honolulu, Midway, Wake, Guam, and on to Manila, and that's the year he wins the Harmon Trophy as the outstanding aviator in the world, and is on the cover of Time magazine on December 2nd, 1935. And there's a story that the publicity director for Pan Am, William Van Dusen, would try to get him to provide him with material for to make good copy for the newspapers,
Mm-hmm.
and he wanted him to to send something back. When they were making that record flight to Manila for the first time, he was like, send me something I can use, something I can give to the papers. And Music, who's famously kind of short on words, just says, well, what do you want me to say? And he says, well, just anything, just describe the sunset over the Pacific. So dutifully, a few hours into the flight, after they left, they get a radio message back that says sunset 6:39 hours.
Which we've all seen the sunset here, and
Yes, we have.
I can think of at least a dozen words that I would use to describe it, other than the time.
Well, you are a writer.
Oh, that's
so,
true. Yeah,
yes.
that's fair. This one of my favorite photos that I've seen of Ed Music is this one. He's at Midway Atoll, and he's sitting. I think it's maybe next to an albatross
Goonie bird.
chick, a
Yeah.
goonie bird. Okay, maybe there's an albatross in the background, and it just it's like this great visual showing that again this was a time in the 1930s when getting to these far reaches and these atolls and these Pacific islands, in the past had taken days or weeks by ship, and here we are, doing it in a much smaller fraction of the time.
Yeah, it's a great. I know exactly the picture you're
Yeah.
talking about. It's very, very candid moment. And, it's very relaxed and just just communing with nature. Just good-naturedly, just crouch down and communing with this resident of Midway.
Yeah, it's a great one. Yeah, so when we were speaking with the group from Hawaii, or sorry, from UCSB this morning, we noted that today it takes about 5 or so hours to get from San Francisco Bay Area to Hawaii, and
Right.
I think you said in 1938 it would have taken 18 hours.
Yeah, the first flight that they made it in 18 hours. Yes,
Wow.
and then the return flight they ran into to really bad headwinds, and so it was the plane was overdue, and it was one of the times when Music actually pushed pushed the limits, where they knew how crucial it was that they honor that schedule, that the airplane be seen to make the flight and return on the days that had been specified, and pushed it past the there's a point of no return, where
Sure.
where you've expended so much fuel that you can't get back to where you came from, so you need to make it to your destination, or and in this case, like, you really have to, because there is no land for 2,400 miles between Hawaii and California, and so they went past the point of no return, and the plane was 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours overdue, and so they finally made it to San Francisco, and Music brought the plane in, just lined it up to come straight in. Didn't when he made turns, he used his rudder pedals just to keep the airplane on kind of an even keel. He didn't dare bank into a turn, because it might cause the what fuel remained in the tanks to sort of slosh away from the intakes and starve the engines of fuel.
That also bleeds off power too, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So he made his landing and taxied up to the dock and shut down the engines, and apparently they dipped put the dipstick in the tanks and determined that there was probably not enough left in to even fly once around the bay.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting too, like, these weren't necessarily pressurized planes like we have today, right? I mean, they were flying at
they were
lower altitudes.
completely unpressurized, so and unheated.
Oh,
So,
burr.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow, I didn't even think about that. What
Right.
about AC? Did they need it up?
No,
wherever they
you're
are?
freezing. You are freezing when you get up there.
That flight from
I,
Apia over here, I was the
I
plane
flew
was really
in
warm.
helicopters in the Army, and so we probably went up to 10 plus, but it's, on a 100-degree day, you would be really cold.
Right.
What
And when you're at 30,000 feet, it's like 50 to 60 degrees below 0 Fahrenheit.
Yeah. What altitude would the Simone Clipper fly at typically?
Probably
That-
15 or 17,000.
I'm not even sure that high.
That
I
high,
think it'd
right.
probably be more like 10,000, give
Yeah.
or take. Yeah.
So that's that
I
first.
think it depended
being-
on like if they had to get over weather or
And 10s, if a commercial aircraft is depressurized, they drop down to 10.
Right.
So I would imagine that 10 is a tolerable altitude.
Yes.
That's that first announcement on your flight when they say you can now stand up. It's safe to move about the cabin.
Right.
Yeah, that's the
Recline
double
your seat,
dings.
yeah.
The 2 dings that you hear are them telling them they're above 10,000.
But it's interesting, you know, music wasn't all caution either. I mean, there's a story of his days flying in the Caribbean when word had reached them that another plane had set down and sunk and marooned the three people on board, and music flew out and landed in rough weather and picked them up, and then it was actually too rough for him to take off again, and he actually taxied back into port.
Oh, wow.
With
Wow.
these three survivors on board.
That would have been a bouncy ride.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
So you know, no shortage of courage at all, or guts, but he was also, you know, just very, very careful and very meticulous, and took no chances that he absolutely didn't have to.
And we have black boxes today, but was there some sort of captain's log that was sort of standard protocol?
Yeah,
for
nothing
flight
that would
crews?
like record data as you were, you know, flying, you know, automatically.
Yeah.
Other than like if you were purposely setting a record run, they might add instruments
Sure.
just to verify it. But otherwise, like just in standard operation, no, there's nothing that.
And it's interesting today. There's some great content that you can see on, you know, YouTube or wherever, or even, you know, large commercial aircraft doing a transatlantic crossing or crossing any ocean. They do a checklist before they enter that phase of flight, and then along the route, they're constantly writing down their fuel measurements, and they mark which are the closest airports, so they know when they're, you know, at this point, if we have an issue, we're going to go here. And then they get to the point like you were just talking about, Russ, where, all right, now we're continuing on. We're at that point where we're
Right.
That's
not
what I'm
turning
doing when I
back.
fly
Yeah.
across the ocean.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
Hawaii's right here, Alaska's right there.
Oh yeah.
Not that I can do anything
There's
about
a
it.
lot of places out there on, at least on this side. There was a commercial flight out of China in the early 90s that had an episode, and they ended up landing on Atka, I think, or Attu, where there's a not publicly accessible military base, which had to not only scramble to accommodate a commercial jet with hundreds of foreign nationals coming in, but to hide everything that wasn't meant to be seen. And Russ, they that incident that caused all those injuries and problems was a deployment of flaps
Oh wow.
at altitude at cruising speed.
Ooh, that's not good.
Oh, gosh.
Oops,
Whoopsies.
that's what that button does. I mean, you know, I don't know if you, I mean, there's enough pilots around here, but if you go in the cockpit of a plane, Boeing particularly, you know, the flap actuator has a little flap at the end of it. And the landing gear controls have a little wheel at the end.
Just for
That little tactile.
if you don't want to read,
That little tactile reminder.
a little reminder. Yeah, we had a Seneca 073 growing up in Southeast Alaska.
Yeah.
And it was really, really fun to, you know, I could at least pretend like I was flying when I was little and,
Right.
cruise around and
Yeah, there's so many float planes in Alaska.
oh yeah, yeah.
I was telling someone, I don't think you were up here, that the Alaskan Public Television Station, every night after dinner, there's a program on. It's an hour long, and it's the weather forecast for the next day. Because there's so much private aviation in Alaska, and it's so expansive, and there's so many regions. And
Yeah.
you go through every region and every pass and every valley, and so all the pilots gather
Yeah.
around in their villages or whatever. And in addition to the forecast that they get.
Yeah, I might be
local
dating
area.
myself now, but when I was growing up, we would call the number and they would say, you know, this is the current conditions and
Yeah.
winds
Yeah.
are blowing at this and swell is doing
Yeah.
that and
Used to be able to call a phone number. I still remember the phone number and get weather for where I lived in Philadelphia.
I can't remember. It's 747.
It was
can't remember the
215. This is right, dating myself now. Oh my god, I don't know what the numbers are. NA111-WE6-1212.
Is that really?
Yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna have to ask my dad. He would know.
yeah.
He will know. And I think that they still do it in
I don't
Alaska.
know. I'm kind of tempted to call it.
Yeah.
Where's that
Yeah.
VoIP phone?
Time and date.
Oh, time was TI61212.
Oh, see, Alaska had it on the same one. The
Oh,
current time is blah blah
yeah.
blah.
I had a friend who I still work with. He'll be coming on board in a couple legs. When we worked in Alaska together, his wife was a telephone operator. And when I would need to do a special call to outside or whatever, I would dial 0 and it'd be like, Alaska, this is Connie. Like, hey, Connie, it's Ed. It's just such a small, and you know, it's in a city of 250,000 people.
Yeah.
It's not like Northern Exposure or anything.
When I was working in D.C. For a senator, and I was answering the phone lines, and people would call in, you know, and they'd be like, well, who are your parents? Where are you from? And I'd give them my family's name, and they'd be like, well, I went to high school with your
Right,
mom. How
right.
is she doing?
That's funny.
Yeah. Are you calling the number? All right, well, the 8 to 12 is coming up on the end of our shift, as the 12 to 4 is meandering into the control room.
Oh, I'm already here.
And
Turn
you
around looking
are
for
just going to hang out here
Yeah.
still.
No, it's no longer happening.
What?
Yeah, no
All
more
right.
weather by phone.
I'm going to
Weather by
message.
app now.
Up. Lame. I'm going to message my dad and get the number for Sitka and see if it's still in service.
Yeah.
I think it is. I feel like we checked it last time. And maybe just to do a quick recap, we are currently on line 19 of 21 in the northern part of our survey area. So we're going to finish up these 3 lines, and then the team will decide, you know, they'll look at the data and decide whether it's more beneficial maybe to explore some of those marked potential targets that we've looked at in the past, either with sonar or with eyes on Argus, or potentially expand the survey area to the west. But, you know, hopefully that we'll have an answer for you, and we'll know what's up next by our next shift.
Did you know that Captain Music has his own Twitter page?
Huh? Who manages that?
Apparently he does. He's like tweeting on there all the time.
Wait,
It's
really?
it's kind of spooky, but
Huh?
yeah, at, what's his first name again?
Ed.
Yeah, at Ed Music.
Well done.
I was going to pull it up here, but the
Airplane. Ah, back at you. 39 seconds into the watch. We thought it was going to take longer and longer to go away.
how do you spell this last name again?
M-U?
S
I-K? C-K?
Is there a Z? Is it Z
I C
or
K.
I think it's
S? We just
S.
lost all of our science colleagues as they're doing a handoff. Maybe our SCF's not on headset. We're all alone. Oh no.
Oh no, no grown-ups.
No
they're
grown-ups.
taking off.
Well done, Dan. That's cool to have. That's cool to have. Luckily, it doesn't look like there's a ton of like those cable supports where the spar things, you know, sometimes you go down on a rack and there would line everywhere. And especially buoyant line. Yeah. It's just that pesky requirement that we bring the ROV back that makes that troublesome.
Back row, checking in.
How you do?
Hello.
Hello?
Hello. Oh, jeez.
Hello.
Oh, sorry, I got to
yeah,
do some
we're
audio
heading
stuff on the intercom here. I'm just
west
forgot there's a launch
on
change
line
going on.
19.
Do that here real quick. Stand by.
We have lines 20 and 21 left to the north.
This is 12 to 4 watch. And push that out. There's new levels. Whoa, somebody jumped up. That might be SCF.
Testing.
Yeah, probably. There, that's better.
Nav, did you order the plane for this watch?
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Forgot.
Did they say what time it was going to be delivered?
So that's what we've been doing wrong.
We need to do it for Mike's birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just saw that as his birthday.
I mean, what better birthday present is there than solving a 80-year-old mystery?
Then to
Yeah.
find what you're looking for.
81.
81.
Oh,
Ooh. Counting mic
we are
drop.
accurate.
Rennie, I'm not sure, but there was some discussion of changing the color of our Argus
Two.
track just to Change the juju up.
I changed it last night to light purple. I thought maybe that would.
I was fond of that, but maybe
right.
the
How long is this
Poseidon is
dive?
not.
This has got to be our longest Argus only dive ever.
I'd heard the longest one was 56 hours.
That
when
was,
pretty sure.
but that was with Herc, yeah?
The longest
I don't
Herc dive
think
is
so.
76
okay.
hours or
Yeah.
something.
Argus, I think Mike
Argus
said
is
56.
Where are we at now?
Yeah.
Do we know?
We were at 56 right when we asked that.
Oh, so we've
And that was at 6:30 in the morning?
today?
Yep.
It's daytime now. So
It's about 6 hours ago.
yeah, my recorder says it's been rolling for 13 hours, but it doesn't count days.
Mm-hmm.
So it's either 1 day and 13 hours or 2 days and 13 hours.
That'd be 2 days at least, in 13
I'm
hours.
just lost in time.
Yeah.
Today's the 17th.
Groundhog Day. 17th of May.
I think it's 2 days, right?
Yeah, we've been.
Yeah, we got out early in the morning and jumped right in on the 14th.
Because we ended that first one early and then got back in at like 10:30, I want to say, at night. That same day.
Yes. Because they were almost down by the time that we started our watch.
Yep. All right, Lonnie, I have a new country in the quest of have you lived there
yeah.
or been there?
Oh,
Brazil.
I have not. I
Oh.
have not.
Have you
On
visited?
my list. I've not visited Brazil, but I
Brazil?
would like to.
Yeah.
Is there any type of wreckage in the Amazon that you could try to find as kind of like your end to a means?
I'm sure there's something for us to go and find as explorers.
I am, for people who have rudimentary Spanish skills, Portuguese is really kind of confounding.
You know, say Portuguese.
And do thank you.
Yeah, I thought they were very similar. And then I went to Brazil and chicken is not the same. Pollo
It's not pollo.
is like, and it's like frango.
But some stuff is the same, which is what's
Yeah.
infuriating. Just change it all.
So since pollo wasn't chicken there, did you try to like pretend to be a chicken to like communicate instead? Did you go straight to charades?
No, I found out the word for chicken in Portuguese, like a normal human, and then said that instead. I think I definitely use that Google Translate app a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
Should we let our listeners know what we're doing, our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure.
Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. This is the noon to 4 p.m. watch aboard the Nautilus, and we are in search of the Samoan Clipper, a Sikorsky S-42B flying clipper, a flying boat, and it was on the first leg of its third round trip route from Honolulu to Kingman Reef to Pongo Pongo, West American Samoa, and then on to Auckland, New Zealand, when it disappeared on the morning of July 11th, 1938. Half hour after its takeoff at 5:37 in the morning, the captain radioed that they spotted an oil leak in engine number 4 and were shutting it down, and they proceeded to jettison fuel, fly about, because the harbor where they had to land back in Pongo Pongo was like trying to land a plane in a well. It was a steep descent over an 800-foot ridge where they had to skim the ridge and then dive down a real white knuckle landing. So of course he had left that morning, half hour before, fully loaded with 2,300 gallons of fuel. By the way, the maximum capacity for the plane was 25, about 2,550, but he had 2,300 and way too heavy to make that difficult landing, so flew around dumping fuel. About 8:34, all contact was lost with the plane. Black smoke was seen. An eyewitness said she saw the plane take a dive, saw a flash of fire She had first seen what she thought was smoke trailing from the wings, but that was the vapor from the fuel that was being jettisoned. Anyway, an emergency landing, and shortly after that, sound of an explosion, and she said she saw the wing float for about 5 minutes.
For that eyewitness account, it goes from the explosion to seeing the wings float. Is there anything about how the plane lowered itself into the water?
It was doing an emergency landing.
Well, I mean, once it had landed on the water, the explosion happened.
You mean how did it,
yeah,
how would it sink?
Yeah, did it sink just straight down? I feel like she would have mentioned that.
No, I mean, this is, the wing was 118 feet 2 inches long, 13 feet wide. It would have acted for a while as a float,
And
but not for long, because it, attached to it were 4 very heavy Pratt & Whitney Hornet engines and 3 huge 3-bladed Hamilton Standard propellers, and you've got a lot of weight there that's dragging this down. So.
And it's 12 miles away, so she just sees it, then she doesn't see it.
She was in her canoe, going from village to village.
So she's not up high.
No, but she did report it before it was known that a plane was missing. So the smoke was seen, and Williamson, who was commander or in charge of the USS Avocet, a seaplane tender ship in Pongo Pongo Harbor, set out on his Grumman Duck airplane from the ship and flew over the site and said that there was an oil slick appearing to come from the bottom of the ocean. He went back. In the meanwhile, the USS Avocet was starting its boilers and getting ready to go out. They went out into the area, stayed all night in the area that Williamson had designated, and shortly after daybreak started seeing debris floating on the water. Williamson flew back out and confirmed that the oil slick, or the oil, seemed to be coming from the bottom of the ocean in the same place. The Avocet searched for about 6.5 hours, picking up very small pieces of debris, including papers, navigator's drift tray, the pilot's armrest, a jacket belonging to the radio officer, Finley. It still had the logo and his name on the jacket. The assistant engineer mechanic's trousers with a bent tie clip in it, and a piece of strut fairing, but not much else. And the strut fairing was the only piece of metal they found. So the search was eventually called off, although Pan Am asked that all efforts be made to find the bodies and salvage whatever they could. They even thought of bringing in a cable ship, but it was too far away, and they thought of trying to find cable in their own area, but was thought to be about 6,000 feet down. In fact, we're down to about 10,000 feet now. And if they had pieced together all the bits of cable they had, they never would have reached the site anyway. So it became one of history's cold cases, and it's only now with modern technology that we're able to open it up again and try to figure out what happened and try to find the Samoan Clipper, and for the sake of Pan Am history and for the sake of this crew and their families, bring some closure to this case.
Beautifully
Lonnie,
said.
can I add to that as well? So when we talk about the witness statement, we talk about what the Bureau of Air Commerce sort of paraphrased in their report. But what we also have is a longer description of what the witness statement was, according to some telegrams made back and forth between here and Pan Am headquarters. And I'll just read that real quick. It says, statement of witness, quote, was going from Fagasa to Asu, I think, in my boat. After passing point south of Bay between 8:30 and 9, I saw a plane circling. I saw thin smoke coming from both wings of plane going in direction of Apia, flying low. After it had passed over me, I could smell gasoline. As I watched, I saw the plane dive to water. There was a big flash, then smoke. Then I heard a big noise like a gun. Saw wings of plane like it was sitting on water for about 5 minutes, then disappeared and could see nothing but smoke. That was her statement.
So that delay between seeing the flash and hearing, that would just be the speed of light versus speed of sound, probably.
I assume so. Was it 12 miles away? So she was in her boat 12 miles away?
I think it was pretty instantaneous.
Yeah.
Yep. There was a big flash, then smoke, then I heard a big noise.
Yeah, so I think it all happened at once, and then
Right.
she just, because of distance, got the sound or the light before the sound. And especially here in the tropics, that makes a lot of sense. The sound would travel
Doppler effect?
slow. Me?
I'm just saying Doppler effect. We talked
Yes.
about it yesterday. Sound. Just thought I'd throw it out there.
So we welcome your questions for those of you who watched along with us. We are continuing to dive just with Argus, no Hercules this time, or at least right now.
And hurry up with those questions, because once we locate the aircraft, we're not going to have a lot of time to be answering them.
Shout out to my husband, Tim, and from what I understand is a very rowdy puppy today.
Is that Cooper?
Yep.
What's he doing?
Tim said that he was terrorizing him.
Ooh. Is he anti-squirrel?
No, I think that he was anti-work today, and
Oh.
so he was making my husband take him out.
All right.
Puppy protest.
That's
My
right.
dog Cooper knows where the mouse is, so if I'm working, because I work from home for half the year.
Have we
he'll
been
come
over?
in
Both
and
your dogs are named
nudge.
Cooper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I wish there's another ROV pilot, John Lee, who has a dog named Cooper as well.
Oh my goodness.
Popular name.
Name of the year.
These dogs really like making barrels.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not sure I could be gone from home like this if we didn't have Cooper. It's just a great companion for my wife to have. We have housemates too, but Cooper's the wonder dog that keeps her company.
I'm sure that Tim says that too, except on days like today, as I understand it.
Yeah, it is funny when an animal's like that. Suddenly, when you talk to your spouse or partner, they're like, "Yeah, your dog's acting
Yeah,
up."
yeah.
It's suddenly your dog, your animal, your cat, your turtle, whatever. It's yours. Same with children.
I want to see what it looks
Look at
like
what
when
your
somebody's
daughter did
turtle
today.
acts up.
Yeah.
A rowdy turtle.
Rowdy. Your turtle.
I tell you what.
Do you know what your turtle did today?
He was swimming so erratically. He would not come out of the sewer to fight crime.
Our dog's 10 years old and still quite active, but we've had people workers, contractors in and out of the house for quite some time. And so we just have him leave the door open, and Cooper will go lay on the front yard and watch him, and mosey to the backyard. And we live in a suburban neighborhood, but he doesn't go anywhere.
My dog Ace is not that loyal. He would be gone.
Gone.
Gone. He does have a massive underbite, though.
Oh, yeah, so does ours.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You can stick your pinky in between his
Yeah,
upper and lower
ours
jaw.
is-
Yeah. Baron von Underbite.
Yeah. And I have to look up Cooper's Facebook page to see. if
Your
there
dog
were
has his
photos.
own Facebook page?
Yeah, I don't know when he set it up. But I think our daughter did it because his favorite TV show is Dog the Bounty Hunter.
Those are the tricks
So.
millennials teach their dogs.
Yeah.
Social media.
I'm not sure our daughter's a millennial.
Hey guys, I hate to draw you back to the topic, but do you want to hear
Yeah, you've been
something
doing
I
some new
discovered?
research.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, we have a modern day kind of pirate who seemed to have been on the scene.
Ooh.
So I was reading a book by Captain Richard C. Knott, U.S. Navy, about the American flying boat. He talks about the Samoan Clipper. The USS Avocet, I'm reading from his book. Navy seaplane tender at Samoa sent up a plane and then took up the search that afternoon, as did former World War I enemy Count Felix von Luckner's yacht, Sea Teufel. So it seems Count von Luckner was a German nobleman, naval officer, author, and sailor who earned the epithet the Sea Devil, and his crew that of the Emperor's pirates for his exploits in command of the sailing commerce raider SMS Sea Eagle Seidler. So I didn't know he was also on the scene. And so I have to put on my Sherlock Holmes hat and try to go after some information because I can't see this corroborated on any other sites. So
Felix von Luckner?
I know he's a real person, but I mean, I don't see another account of him also being on the site during the search.
That's really interesting.
He was also an author.
So he would have
I
just
do
been
see on researching him just quickly this morning that he was taking a sailing trip with his wife, and he was right there in that area during this time.
Raider.
So he would have been out on the second day, or did it say?
On the second day, well, he was in the area sailing, so I don't know if he actually saw on January 11th the crash, I don't know. But he was there when the Avocet was out there picking up debris on the 12th.
Wow.
So if he's a sea pirate and he picked something up, he probably wasn't turning it over to the U.S. Navy, but we'll have to, there is a Count Felix von Luckner Society.
Really?
And it might be worth contacting them to see what they have to say about that particular incident. Or maybe we have another eyewitness, who knows? But he is no longer alive.
You'd think that he would have come forward, given all the sensationalist news at the time, if he was a witness.
It was wartime. After that, you know,
Well,
for the Germans.
interwar.
Yeah, but shortly after
That's true. Shortly
the
after.
Germans, so.
Yeah.
I was looking up Felix von Luckner, and apparently he had the ability to tear up telephone directories with his bare hands.
My son-in-law can do that.
Oh, wow.
Party parlor trick.
Yeah. But no, he seems to have lived a really interesting life.
Had a great physical gift of strength. Was noted for his ability to bend coins between the thumb, index finger, and middle finger of his right hand.
Oh.
Goodness.
Hitler tried to use him for propaganda purposes.
I see that. He
And
passed
apparently
away in 1966.
managed to slip through a British blockade disguised as a Norwegian ship.
Quite the character.
Wow.
Ah. He escaped a prisoner of war camp while he faked setting up a play for Christmas. This guy sounds like definitely a character.
It also notes that he saved the life of a Jewish woman, though, too. He gave her a passport and allowed her to escape to the U.S. His stories are really interesting. Wow.
Between 1973 and 75, there was a TV series about him. The Adventure du Captain Luckner. Huh. What do you know? The society is apparently also trying to create a memorial and museum for him. Cooper, I have good news, is thankfully sleeping now.
That's good.
Tim seems very relieved.
Woo. It's interesting to go back and read the sensationalist news reports of the time. There's a lot of things in the news that we know now are just completely not true. And a lot of very, very sensationalist stuff.
Yeah, I was looking through that yesterday, and it was just very dramatic sounding.
Yes, very.
Wives collapse at the
Well, really, the
scene
whole
Sea
paper,
of
the tone of
sharks.
the tone of the headlines at the time, it was like, how could you even open the paper?
Oh gosh, I know. I think Sea of Sharks was mentioned like over and over and over. So probably not.
Yes, it's the ocean, and there will be sharks. Yeah.
That's right.
So much has changed since then.
Keep those questions coming in to our viewers all over the world.
All right, so we're like, Dan brought in a cool slideshow thing. Then I'm looking at all the planes, the plane taking off.
Yeah.
On different slides. So I'm kind of still confused about how the landing gear happens when they want to be amphibious and go on land. Like you said, they take the wheels off, but something retracts, extends down for the landing gear.
Let me get to one of these pictures that's actually showing the full plane.
Yeah, I guess I didn't look at it close enough yet.
That's okay.
To answer the question that just came in, Hercules is not being used because Argus is being towed behind to help us make a side scan sonar map of the area. So we're going to continue to do that and finish these lines that you can see on the third channel to
Summer, you
ultimately
see
finish.
how those are on there? That was literally, I think that was literally like a cradle that would have been just from land.
Well, I did say that, and then I looked at my phone. I remember taking a picture of a picture, and it looks like they just literally mounted on one of the struts.
Correct. I think that they mounted them on the side. So these would have been the type that they wouldn't have brought with them anywhere. These would have been the type that they only would have had at port locations where they would have been taken out. But some of the flying boats did have the retractable ones. Like I know that the PBM-5 Mariner had retractable ones.
Gotcha.
But this one, yeah, would have just had the mounted ones.
Imagine that thing taking off in 35 seconds. I keep looking at it. It's
Yeah.
also,
Yeah.
the window, the pilot's visibility seems severely obstructed.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm sure all you could see was the tip of your own nose.
Right. Just the angle of everything.
I have something about the beaching gear, they call it, although I'm missing part of the information, but it said the ship is equipped with an easily detachable beaching gear consisting of dual 40-inch by 10-inch tires mounted on solid tensile strength cast bronze wheels. These wheels may be locked in a fore and aft position ship so as to maneuver the ship into a hangar sideways. And it's a detachable tail wheel. Swivels, and then I'm missing the rest.
Gotcha.
we have a question from an audience member that was wondering if we were to turn off Argus's lights, would we potentially see any bioluminescent organisms? I don't think we would.
No, you would see nothing but black.
Your camera isn't sensitive enough.
So even if there were some organisms, we wouldn't pick it up.
But we have gone down with more sensitive cameras. Dr. Brennan Phillips at URI has brought it out a couple years ago. I think it was now 2 years. Yeah. We turned off all the lights on the vehicles, and except for a small LED, something like that, and used a low light camera, and it was great. We saw bioluminescence in the water column.
Was there quite a bit of it? Or was it kind of hit or miss?
Yeah, it depended on where we were and what we were doing. We attempted to strobe the water column to kind of instigate it. I'm sure he's got a paper up about it.
There's some photos of it in the supplement.
Yeah, I would venture to guess there's some of that content on the Nautilus Live website as well.
Other great things on Nautilus Live's website is the application for the internships. They're not currently open, but encourage you to check them out now. That way you could prepare your application when they open up this fall/winter. And you might be on with us next year.
Yeah. Have a good relationship with your professors or people that you would expect to get letters of recommendation from, because those play a big part.
Yep, start being very nice to them right now if you haven't already. Peyton, who did your letters of recommendation?
One was from Miley Sullivan, who was one of the coordinators for Orca Bowl, the regional NOSB competition. She also works for Washington Sea Grant. And the other was Dave Glenn, who is originally one of the youth engagement mentors at the Seattle Aquarium. I think he's now like the general volunteer coordinator. But yeah, he was the other person that wrote my letter of rec.
Nice.
My one of the interns selected for this year almost would have gotten the internship just on the strength of one letter. It was
that's an amazing letter.
I've written 2 of those in my career. You
Yeah.
come across somebody that's just so promising and so outstanding that you write a letter of recommendation that you're trying to call attention to the fact that to the reader, this is not a normal letter.
Yeah.
I've been asked to write a lot of these, and one of those letters, if not 2, I've only written 2 in my whole career. But I distinctly remember one of them. I told the person I would stake my professional career on this person serving you well.
Wow.
I was like, this is not a normal letter.
Yeah.
You know, I literally
You
put
literally
it in
said
there. Yeah. Of course, I trust that's not, these letters aren't something that the applicants are privy to, because I don't need somebody with that big of a head running around.
Yeah, I meant to thank you for that, Ed, but I was just trying to get out of jury duty. I mean, it wasn't really that necessary.
I shouldn't say anything about jury duty. I've been very lucky.
I just got summoned.
Did you really?
Yeah.
In Los Angeles?
Delaware.
So did I. My friend's got my mail and forwarded it to her. She said, she's a lawyer, so I was like, use your fancy lawyer words and tell them I can't do it. She's like, all right, I'm on it.
I feel like being out to sea is a pretty good. They're not going to Skype you in.
I think it depends on the state and how stringent they are with how many times you can kind of put it off on work.
Yeah, my letter said this person will be in the middle of the Pacific Ocean.